Hey everybody, thank you for joining Taurus Tech Talk. It's been a while since we've been in the studio.
Yeah, what are we doing?
I know. It's going to probably be a little rusty, but we'll work it out. Today
You're going to be rusty.
That's true. I heard you practicing this morning in the office. Today we have the pleasure of Kip Kendrick, joining us with Legrand AV. Kip, thank you for coming on the show, man.
It's great being on the show, Rusty.
You're right. We are.
See, I like it already. So Kip, let's just jump right in. Tell us about your role at Legrand.
Yeah. So the role I am in is rather new to the bigger. I call it Big L Legrand, Little L Legrand. So Big L Legrand is an international firm out of France.
Yeah.
Lots of brands. Some none of us have ever heard, nor do we want to have anything to do with because they're, from overseas. But my role is really to help the brand be known because we have lots of micro brands. So Chief, Daylight, Vadio, names we know in the industry, but it's a bigger company with lots of those types of things, but they need to know that's part of the Legrand family. And so my role is working with architects, consultants, and in many cases, end users, especially large corporate end users that have teams that are dealing with audio, video, lighting, things of that nature. But I really bring those brands forward to them and help them navigate a very large company. And it's hard. I mean, just to be honest, our website's not the best. We all know that. We're trying to transition it, making it better. But when you're dealing with such a big company, it's just a lot of data. There's a lot of stuff behind the scenes. And so it's taken a while. So, my role is to help people navigate that, help people find the product. Like I know we were talking about, mount. Mount seems pretty easy, but there's lots of nuances to mounts these days. What setup do you want on it? Do you want it to tilt, not tilt? What's the weight? Do you want to hide things behind it? I mean, there's just lots.
What other accessories do those accessories work with the display that works with the mount? And can the wall, is the wall going to hold all of that up when it's all said and done?
Yep. And the architect just glazed over. Just right there on what we just said, they just glazed over. And that's where I come into play, is to say, hey, don't glaze over. That's my job. Let me go get all that data for you and give it back to you.
I found that,
so do that.
More parent companies and manufacturers are kind of incorporating this role into their organization.
Yeah.
And they're pulling from consultant groups and integrators to fill these positions rather than other manufacturers. And I think it's super helpful for guidance to integrators like us, because you have a good understanding of the full suitcase of tools, not just
right.
You haven't been just in the mount business for 40 years, right? You've experienced everything on both sides of the mount. I think that's super critical.
Yeah, the education aspect. I mean, not every integrator or someone that you're buying, if we're picking on mounts from, have the time to be able to offer the education, and you really do.
Yeah.
So building the core fundamentals. So tell us how you came to the position that you're in now. Tell us how you started in Pro AV, maybe.
Oh, well, I'll try to stay at the 5,000 foot level, make it enjoyable. But I tell everybody it goes back to my granddad. It's really interesting. But
okay.
Oddly enough, my grandfather drove a bread truck for Ms. Baird's Bread.
Nice.
In Fort Worth.
That's my best friend right there.
He would get up early in the morning and he would deliver bread to just all the little restaurants and grocery stores back when you didn't have these monster stores, right? And then he'd be free the latter half of the day. And so he was a tinkerer. He's a mad scientist, to be honest. He had a garage, so he watched the commercial garage doors for the trucks. He's like, why don't I have that at my house? It's so literally he took parts out of washer machines and bicycles and all this kind of stuff and came up with this relay system with a foot pedal for the car. So when the car came in the driveway, it would hit this little foot pedal thing that he'd put into the driveway and it would open his garage door. And I just thought, that's crazy. And so he...
I can see you're like, can I meet this man?
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, no. But it just kind of, I was the younger child. And so I got to spend more time with him, my brother and sister. And so it kind of got into my system. And then I was not given the gift of music talent. Like I don't play an instrument. You don't really want me playing an instrument, but I had that technical bend. And so I just found myself tinkering a lot with buddies that did audio type stuff, whether it's a band or whatever. And then it was volunteering at church, getting engaged because my grandfather did that. And I thought, oh, that's cool, So I did that. And as I was exiting college, did TCU, and as I was exiting, I had the benefit of one of my really dear friends was the band Mercy Me. And so
Okay.
I got to know those guys before they were famous and go to these little rinky-dink little church events and stuff. And so I got to be around more serious road gear, if you will, right? Because they were big enough that they had serious road gear. So it dug the bug a little bit further. And then I engaged with some more churches and kind of built a brand name for myself of helping with production. And, you know, at one point I was helping with productions at Prestonwood Church here local, which is a really big church. And, just some different ones. And it kind of kept building. And this was before I was married. So, you know, you had all the time in the world. And so staying up to 2 a.m. is not a big deal. But then I got married and it's like, you know, you really can't do that anymore when you're married. And so I went on and kind of worked with a local design integrator that did a lot of broadcast type stuff, camera work and things like that, because I knew that market and they did a lot of church work. And that just dug the bug deeper because I'm like, well, this is really, I enjoy this. I enjoy helping people figure out how to make this happen. And then that led to, you know, I had kids, so I needed better income than that. And so I went to work at an engineering firm, which was great until they sent me out of town for months on end, it seemed like, you know, to work on big projects. And then I moved into doing my own consulting, construction consulting. So there was a real lack in the industry of being able to communicate at the developer level. So the people that are really pulling the money together and making these big technology projects happened.
Yeah.
And just the way I was wired, my uncle was a home builder. And so I'd been around that a little bit. And my dad was an industrial engineer consultant. And so he would go in, I called him the doctor of companies. So he would go in and figure out what's ailing some company, whether it's rearranging things inside their warehouse or whatever. And so I think my wiring, just because of those influences of the men and women in my life, gave me these skills. And so I found myself working heavily with architects, navigating our language, really is what it is, and it being an interpreter. In fact, one of the architects says, you're a technology interpreter. That's the best definition I've figured out how to tell people about you, is you're a technology interpreter.
We should change your card.
Yeah.
It's
all I can think is a
sounds so much
flashback
better.
to the was filmed here, the Red Stapler movie. Help me out.
the
Office
Space?
Office Space.
Office Space.
Where the guy's like,
what a
great-
classic.
yeah, the scene where he's like, I'm good with people.
I bring the specs to the engineers.
That's right.
It's like, well, why can't we just take the specs directly to the engineers? They can't talk to people.
I think that's fascinating because I've met other consultants. We're not going to name names, but you know, they understand the technology that they're working for.
Yeah.
The company that they're working for.
They're excellent at it.
But understanding how that technology, where it comes into play, at what
Right.
phase in a project, and you with the intimate experience of having construction background, allows you to do that.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you guys are one-sided. We need to get these in-wall boxes in.
Correct.
So that's really awesome. It's awesome.
It really is. And my interactions with Legrand were almost instant to me getting in the industry, you know, more deeply in the industry, working in the broadcast and stuff. And I started seeing, back then it was the brands that Legrand owns now, but I would see these various brands. Middle Atlantic is an obvious one. Daylight's the other really obvious one. And so over the course of time, I just built these relationships and I started realizing I'm seeing this group all the time. And we just built kind of a really good rapport. And a lot of the individuals that live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and that's one of the areas I'm personally blessed as an employee of Legrand. I have like 12 or 13 heavy hitter Legrand people in this area. So it makes it that much more enjoyable for me working on projects or whatever, because I have these great resources. I mean, one of our major production facilities is in Richardson, around the corner from my house, for goodness sake. So anyway, they approached me a couple of times, said, hey, would you consider, and about 3 years ago, they came and they described this role. It was very vague, to be honest with you. It was one of those like, I don't know about this, you know. Conversation took about 3 months going through ins and outs because I was pretty happy with what I was doing.
But I'm sure the descriptions left a lot up to interpretation, and it ends up potentially being one of those positions where you wear 10 hats instead of the 3 you thought you were going to wear.
That was the biggest fear, honestly.
Yeah, that would be, and we struggle with that internally when we develop a new position. It's sort of like, here's what you're going to do today, but who knows what's going to happen tomorrow. And so I get if you're comfortable where you're at, being reluctant to go to a position where it's kind of like, we're going to work and figure this and define this together.
Right.
Yeah, that asterisk could be a little scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, most certainly.
And as somebody who hires people, on the other side of that coin, I'm like, we're going to work through it together. We'll figure it out. And yeah, the apprehension is present.
Yeah, but it's ended up being spot on correct. And I've loved this company for years. And now that I'm on the inside, I got to tell you exactly what I loved on the outside, I love on the inside. The people are amazing. I mean, I'm sure every company somewhere there's somebody that's not amazing that works for Legrand, but you would be hard pressed, right? It's that really good environment. They care about not only employees, but they care about partners and end users and everything in a way that matches with how I'm wired. And so it's been great.
I know when we have the tech show and the Legrand group comes in and sets up their, there's always several people involved in that, and they're all, whether I've had previous experience with them or not, they're all very friendly, very kind, good-natured people. It seems like it doesn't feel like, oh, I got to do another show or I got to do this or when can I get out of here?
Yeah,
it's a little different attitude. You can tell.
Yeah,
they're not turning it on for the sake of the environment.
Yeah, we should probably give them more space in the show too. There's just not enough space for everything Legrand AV.
As long as they're willing to pay double, that's fine.
Man, there's not enough.
You heard it here first, Kip.
Yeah, it's true. You bring in more of the brands in, it really gets crowded.
Yeah,
but
that's a heck of a deal from a Legrand standpoint. It's like, we're going to bring in 10 brands for the price of one.
Yeah.
This is a plug for the show. So tell us something. We like to ask every guest this because we think it's fun.
Yeah.
We've gotten some very interesting answers. We've gotten, hey, I was on the U.S. Olympic team, or I toured with this band. We've gotten some.
Yeah, there was some
really interesting answers here.
One guy, as a producer, held a platinum record, I think.
Yeah. So tell us something about yourself that maybe the coworkers, viewers, listeners don't know about you. Besides that, your name sounds like a superhero. Kip Kendrick.
Hadn't heard that. That's I like that.
I like it
I'll
too.
have to get my boys
I'm already
to
like
believe that.
Envisioning the logo, like the KK logo with the circle around it on your chest, like that.
My wife asked me what we're doing today. I was like, oh, we're going to do a cast. And she's like, oh, who's the guest? I'm like, why are you interested? I've never seen you be interested. I said your name, and she goes, is he hot? He sounds like he's like a superhero hot. That's where I came with that.
My wife would say no to that.
She's going to watch this. No. She's going to watch this.
She's going to watch just to find out.
I'm sorry. We're going off on a tangent. Yeah. Tell us something that somebody may not know about you.
Gosh, man, I don't. That's a tough one. I don't know why it's a tough one for me suddenly.
We already know that you were with Mercy Me, helping out sounds, setup. That's awesome.
Yeah, I've gotten a lot of opportunities like that. I think the oddest thing that's ever happened to me, I could give you that, was on a church retreat. The bus turned the corner and I fell out because the door flew open. That's usually, everybody's like, well, that explains what's wrong with you.
Oh my! We need to know a little bit more about the bus.
Yeah.
I mean, is it? Yeah, are we talking like a school bus?
No, like a Ford Econoline type nice. I mean, it was a nice church bus. It wasn't like an old dilapidated.
Kip, how fast were they going?
About 40 miles an hour.
Oh my gosh!
And just wheeled the corner. And
they went to make the turn on the corner.
Was closed?
The door was closed. It opened and out I went because I was like this, like I am with you. I was kind of leaning and had my back towards the door, and just that force, and then the door opened and poof, I went out.
Did you just pop right up and they were like, "Yep, it's a miracle"?
Truly, it was. I'll be honest with you. I ended up against the curb. Luckily, not with my skull against the curb, but ended up at the curb.
How old were you?
I was probably about 14, 15, something like that.
There's some correlation between early head injuries and
and creativity and being so great at your job.
That's exactly what I was going to say, less eloquently.
I mean, so were your parents on the trip with you? I'd imagine not, right?
They weren't.
And so
she was freaked out when she heard. Yeah.
You were on your way home or on your way to camp?
They had actually just picked me up. I was probably about 4 miles from my house.
Oh no!
Yeah.
So do they just like load you in the bus and just keep going and like you just brush the dust off?
That's exactly what they did. Yeah, I think they were thinking liability and all kinds of things at that time, and I seemed to be responsive, so they just kind of kept it going.
I'm not trying to call you out on your age or anything. I know, but at at me at 14, I fell out of the back of my grandpa's truck, and he picked me up and dusted me off, and we went on down the road.
Yeah.
That was it.
I'm just saying. I mean, I have 3 girls, and I think if something like that happened, the people that you get the least mad at is your church.
Yeah.
You know, if it was anybody else, one of your friends, if you were on a ski trip with some buddies, I mean, it's going to be a bad thing.
You sort of, as a parent, just kind of got to bottle that up and push that down.
Yeah. It's the church members. I mean, what are you going to do?
Well, and I tried to play it off. You know, there were girls in that bus, so I had to be cool about it.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's kind of one of those things. But,
Get on the bus and go, whoa, I didn't know we were getting on a roller coaster.
I think we can chalk that one up to another great answer to the question.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
He went back in the...
It's awesome now that you're okay and everybody's all right.
Yeah.
But I couldn't imagine if that happened now, like the difference in parental behavior.
No, there would have been documents to sign and all kinds of things. Yeah, it would have been
47 pages later.
Yeah.
So I found this interesting. I communicate with end users and some of the same people that you do. And Legrand to somebody means one thing, and to another person means a completely different thing.
Yep.
And it's because, like you had pointed out earlier, the company has such an extensive network of components and manufacturers within the umbrella. So I know it's a hard question, but I'd love for you to explain Legrand and really what it covers product set wise, if you could.
Yeah, and to add to the humor, most people don't know Legrand started out making dinner plates.
Wow.
Yeah, so China. We were porcelain experts, Legrand was. And that led us to being
French plates,
yeah,
just to be clear. So
very expensive.
Not your China in your China hutch. It would be your French in your French hutch.
Yes. Yes. And what led to...
You understand.
I got it.
You got it?
Okay.
Is that it's a great non-conductor for electricity, they discovered, right? That China aspect. And so we were making light switch covers and plates and things like that. And so we were doing it for other people. And then we realized, hey, we probably should, and we've continued this trend. Well, we should probably do that ourselves. We should own them. And so we just buy it out. So our background really started in the electrical systems. And so if you dig deep, you'll find that...
So what time frame are we talking about here for the porcelain stuff?
Are we 18 to 19? It's that transition from 18
so like the porcelain knobs for knob and tube wiring.
A lot of them were Legrand.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Do you know about knob and tube wiring?
If it's French,
I know Kip
probably
does.
not.
It's also American.
Yeah, I
was kidding. No, I don't.
Wiring
If you
inside
want to
of...
talk about Pro AV, I got that. But
Listen, I'm just going to educate you real quick.
Go ahead.
Like 10 seconds. Knob and tube wiring used to be like copper with really cruddy cloth over it, and they held it
really
inside of walls with a porcelain little knob with a nail through it, and that held the wire inside the walls and inside the attic.
Okay.
So that it wouldn't touch anything else because it would electrocute you.
And yet no one died, you know.
You
look at this and you think, yeah, that can't be real.
So knob and tube is not up to code anymore. It's not
even close.
But
I think I can visualize, and I think maybe even I've seen something
you've
like
probably
this in
seen it, like
a museum, or
if you've ever seen a horror movie where they get in the attic.
Yes.
Usually it's used as props in those attics, like strung like telephone poles.
Okay.
Like between telephone
I thought
poles.
this whole day was going to go by. I wouldn't learn anything. But
yeah. I actually have a box. I'm not kidding. Okay. A box of knobs like this, of porcelain knobs, unused. That was my grandpa's that he had in his
Every
garage.
once in a while, you get a little nostalgic, and you just go out there and open it up. Like, man, look at this.
It's an unused antique in the original box. It's a thing. I don't know.
You'll have to show me next time I come over. I can't wait to
Some
see
of those go for a lot of money, especially
Yeah.
when you get into the little light switch that, you know, it's like, what when I flip this, what's it going to do? It's going to fire off a rocket? What is this? You know,
little porcelain light
Because it looks
switch?
nothing like our current setup. So
great.
it was solving a problem.
Yeah.
And that's the key. So when you ask about all the different brands and stuff like that, it's really about solving problems. And the first thing in the inception of the company was solving that problem, and then the realization that cabling needed to move through places, and so we just kind of kept going. Back here behind us, you've got one of our oldest brands, which is wire mold. So you have this cable pathway going from the ceiling to the floor because the contractor forgot to put an electrical outlet for you, right? So those were problems that we began figuring out how to solve, and it's just kind of stayed consistent. And as technology started merging with electrical, really to become a unified structure rather than a dependent structure, or independent structure, Legrand said, hey, we really need to be doing more communications products, more audiovisual products and stuff like that. And that's where the mergers begin to occur between Milestone and Legrand and things of that nature. And so that's what's led to the company now is a lot of the things that we're doing, whether it be lighting systems, because we have multiple brands of light fixtures, the physical fixture, we now have brands of that. They're being embedded with PoE. Well, PoE is what our Luxel division does, right? And so we're just seeing, hey, these things need to be coming together. Individuals like yourself, the consultants and the developers are saying, hey, we need this stuff. And we're like, help us understand. And I think that's one of the things that I've loved about the company is the voice of the people, is that we really do spend time getting to know, like our most recent camera from Luxel, the IntelliShot, which is an auto tracking type camera, small package. It was developed specifically for the educational market first off, and then the other markets it works. And it's because we look at the product sets that we have, we look at the parts, the pieces, and we say, okay, how can we help you? And then we sit back and we listen. And a client will tell you their struggles, the failures of other manufacturers or the positive of other manufacturers, and they'll tell you how bad you stink. I mean, they will. And we really try to encourage that.
You clearly have not been to enough of our vendor meetings. we're if nothing else, we're vocal.
Yeah, and I think that's good. And so the evolution of the Chief product, the Vadio product, the Daylight. I mean, Daylight's got some really great stuff. If we can get past the supply chain and COVID issues, I think we'll see even greater things out of all these brands. It's really slowed us down. But we have a data comm division that focuses in on data centers and data-centric things. But they're not sitting out there all on their own. They communicate back with the AV division and likewise the electrical division, so that we're making sure that we're not just producing individualistic products, which we do, and we even make products for other manufacturers to use. We work with Samsung closely. We work with Epson and many other brands to help them implement their products as well. And so in those relationships, there's opportunity, and that opportunity goes back to my job, which is why I love it. And it's that opportunity to get in front of people that are that end user or that the need individuals, the architect. Hey, you're really hampering my ability to design by this ugly box. Okay. So I hear that a lot.
So what you're saying is you guys are not hampered or limited by your internal communication as far as the shared brands under Legrand.
Yeah.
Because to me, as an outsider, I would be like, oh, well, this brand's over here doing their thing, and this brand's over here doing their thing. And, they all sort of find out when there's a press launch about a new product, and that's it.
Yeah, and that exists. I think that exists on any company, even ours. But the heart of the company is not to be that. If that was just, hey, that's the way we're going to be, and we all do our silos, that's not going to be productive.
Well, it's good to hear. I was not aware of that. I mean, it's got to be an insurmountable task to build some sort of communication channel between these brands who all sort of have their own baked in processes. And it doesn't seem to me like Legrand has come in and swept the rug and said, here is your new process. This is how you're going to do it. Right. They've kind of left them doing what has made them successful as a brand, but maybe united them through some level of communication tool.
Communication tools, access to product, a Vadio and a Luxel has access to a lot more technology than a Daylight when you think about it.
Yeah.
So the design specialists at Daylight are benefiting from their partners at Luxel because suddenly PoE is a major request. So how do we make a screen PoE powered? How do we do some of these elements? And it's really good. And I mean, we've definitely got walls that have to be torn down, like everybody does, for communication between division to division. But the heart of leadership is let's get working better together, but don't lose sight of the fact that you have your own identity and you need to be pushing that identity. Obviously, Middle Atlantic and Daylight have little to do with each other. I mean, they're not. Whereas Chief might have a little bit of interaction of audio, or so there's definitely individualistic elements about it. The lighting division, that's always going to be kind of a separate thing, and they're going to be a little bit siloed. But a lot of the guts that goes into that lighting division product and development doesn't have to be siloed. You can look at the bigger Legrand and say, hey, we got some really great parts over here in Malaysia. For the Malaysian market, we make a special product. Hey, that product will work good here. And so we're really doing a better job internally. We got to do a lot better, but we're bringing that in. And part of it is my role. It's getting those people communicating about their needs.
So do you think some of that relationship between the brands has helped at all with the supply chain and COVID issues?
Oh, beyond belief. Yeah.
I mean, and so like the material to make this coffee mug is also the same material to make his coffee mug. We can, share product or share where we're getting it from, or, load balance between the two so that at least both brands, as we keep referring it, are still making products instead of one just being completely stopped down because they're choosing to get it from here versus there.
And I would go one further. It's also because we are a great relationship company with other companies that really changed our COVID impact. And an example is that we do a lot with Lowe's and Home Depot and stuff through some of our electrical consumer goods. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the big distributors and things like that. So COVID hits and suddenly you can't get cargo containers, you can't get ships, you can't get anything. We reached out to those groups and we said, hey, Samsung and us talked quite a bit about things, LG, other groups, and found ways to work together to secure the ability to get materials. So that was a very tangible at the executive level, of which I was just blown away as they shared, hey, we're going to do these things because we know it has impact on our clients. Probably the biggest one to your question specifically was the purchase of steel. So as COVID hit, and I would love to give credit to who it was. I just, I see the memo, I see the details, but someone was able to communicate broadly to high up leadership, hey, we need to put in a PO. And it caused a chain event with several of the different groups to get clearance from high up people to put in POs immediately for large quantities of materials. They're like, you're not going to use that. That's a 3-year burn through. And you're saying you want to bring all that material in for a single year. And the powers that be said, you know what? I think there's some wisdom in this. Let's do it. And so Middle Atlantic was able to continue to bend steel when a lot of people couldn't. A lot of the parts and pieces. So Vadio's an American-made product. We make it in Minnesota. A lot of people think that it's overseas. It's not. Yeah, there's lots of parts and pieces within Luxel and Vadio that we do bring in from Taiwan and Malaysia and other types of places. But ultimately, the final product is fully assembled, put together, packaged in Minnesota. And so Vadio had tons of material shipped in early. And it made the difference. So lots of universities, the Vadio camera, thank you for having Vadio here looking at me today. That's a really great thing. We were able to stay to our production. And when we had delays, that went out like 90, we had a couple of them that were beyond 90 days, but it wasn't a delay because of a lack of material. It was a delay because of how much demand, because we were able to say, yes, we can get you cameras. It just may be slightly delayed. And so that was a good benefit that I saw, them doing supply chain management and saying, hey, we're going to have these issues potentially. Let's get this material in and store it. And being the big company that we were able to store a lot of that stuff and pigeonhole it. But I'm going to give kudos. The other part is our distribution partners. Man, there were several times in the deep part of COVID that they stepped up for dealers like y'all to be able to say, hey, we still have some inventory of X, Y, and Z. And we were able to pull that back and get it to a dealer because our distributor partner knew how we operated. And so they didn't have a negative response to us saying, hey, we got to get material back from you to give to somebody else. Yeah. Or they were willing to pass it through in a positive relationship manner. And I think those kinds of things, as we've been managing this, just
that would be That would be like Ford shipping a whole bunch of trucks to a dealer in DFW, and there being no trucks in the state of Kansas.
Yeah.
And the dealers in Kansas going, we really need trucks, and Ford going, okay, let me call Sam Pack.
Yeah.
And
Great analogy.
And pull back 200 cars, and Sam Pack going, yes, we're part of the ecosystem. That's okay. I don't think that would happen in the auto industry, given what I know,
right.
what little I know about dealers.
A little bit more cutthroat, I think.
But you know, if it were that symbiotic, that's kind of how I draw that in my head.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really good.
As you meet with these individuals in the planning process, I'd imagine your lead conversation is all about, we need to plan this out much further than what we've ever had.
Oh, beyond what I ever thought I'd say. Yeah.
I mean, we call it supply chain, but it's everything. There's a domino effect to it.
Yeah.
There's getting the product. That's one thing. There's coordinating those efforts for when that product comes in, because that could be sporadic. You could think it's 10 months from now, but maybe then it hops forward to 8, but you planned on 10 months. And so you're having to shift around. So tell us a little bit about when you meet with people. Is that truly the first thing that you start talking about? Like, okay, when's this supposed to happen? Because I need to tell you these things up front.
Won't name the university, but I was at a university this week, and that was the very first conversation was, I'm going to need 40 of this, 60 of that, something else. When do I need to get that order in? And of course, he was relieved. He said, well, I don't need it until next summer. And I'm like, next summer? I thought you were going to say you needed it in 60 days. And so there was a good relief there. And then he got really excited, but he's hearing from other manufacturers, and that's not the answer he's getting from them.
Yeah.
It's a 12-month lead time or something like that.
When this is kind of our, and you're acutely aware of our challenge, but since we're dealing with so many brands and so many manufacturers, some are a couple of weeks, some are a couple of months, some are saying Q1, Q2 of 23, and all of those parts come together to make an integrated system that we need to put in for a customer.
Right.
And it's, you know, initially we had taken the approach, we'll just order everything now, even if it's going in the fall. That way, if lead time on, say, a mount pushes, let's say it's 4 weeks, but we get 3 weeks and they call us back and go, now it's 13 weeks. And we didn't order it. We tried to stage it out.
Yeah.
Early on, this was a problem we faced with regularity. So it was like, just order everything right up front. But, you know, even though Legrand is significantly larger than Taurus, everybody in the back end are still, you're all looking at those as financial decisions. Like, you know, I'm going to hold on, in Legrand's case, you know, multiples of millions of dollars of product and or equipment or storage or whatever, just to continue to meet the demand of the marketplace.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah, I've been trying really hard to get that message out there when we meet. And a lot of the times, I'd say like 9 times out of 10, you're meeting with someone that I'm going to meet with many months later.
Yeah.
And so when they get to me, if they didn't have someone of your knowledge or expertise to say, yeah, okay, our Legrand products, we can definitely get you those by next summer. That's not a problem. But you need to also think about the other products, like Corey's saying, you need to think about the other products that are going into there. I can't speak to those, but you definitely need to talk to someone about those.
Well, but it impacts me.
Yes.
Because think about it. Let's just use Samsung and LG, right? So the consultant engineer has said it's going to be a Samsung display. So you've sat down with me, we've looked at the specs of the Samsung display, and we've decided, hey, this is the best chief mount for that display application. So I tell you, hey, no problem. That's exactly what you need and everything else. And suddenly Samsung, because of their supply issues, says, hey, I can't produce that display anymore. And they're going to move you to this new display that's 2 inches bigger, let's say. Well, the architect's already drawn the hole for the display, right? All these things have been coordinated. And now suddenly you're like, well, that's not going to work. So you have to shift to an LG display. So there's these balances that everybody's having to do. And it is not very easy. And, you know, going back to how I'm wired and the benefits of the way I have come through the system, is I've had a lot of conversations, and my conversation actually isn't talking supply chain. It's actually talking on the financial side, because that's really where this stuff is going on. And you see the stuff in the economy, and you hear them talking about all these, interest rates, doing this, doing that. Man, this stuff, it really matters. And I think a lot of people aren't tied in. I'm hoping this process we're in, kind of like COVID, caused some waking of people. I'm hoping this financial stuff is going to wake some people up, because a developer doesn't have $1 billion in his pocket. He's going to a bank. He or she, the developer, is going to a bank to get a loan for this. And they don't say, okay, here's your $1 billion check. You get draws. But unlike you and I, when they do those draws, they instantly start paying interest on it. It's not like, hey, we're going to delay. Now, some people get special treatment packages because of the size of their portfolios or whatever. I get that. But I'm talking about the average project the majority of us are on. It's not I have the cash, here you go, and you move on down the road. If that was the case, if everybody worked on cash, we could get everything super, super fast. But when a developer starts to dole out money, he's expecting some type of return. And it's the same thing with the general contractor. A general contractor is not getting all his money up front, and his margins are very narrow. So many people think general contractors are just making loads of cash.
They're doing it in quantity.
Yeah,
it's not one item that they've got 50 points on. They want 50 items with 1 point. But not that they even want that. That's just how it shakes out.
Yeah. And so they're giving out paper, the orders, the POs, based on that timeline on behalf of the owner. So they're asking the owner for advances of X number of dollars, and then they have to apply back these billables. And because I've been exposed to that process, I'm beginning to see the complexity of what we're dealing with right now. And so I'm trying to communicate that to the consultants and the end user to say, hey, there's a lot more behind the scenes than just so-and-so can't deliver a product. You've got to think, when you say, hey, let's just order it now, well, how's that impacting that individual's bottom line? Because they're going to start paying interest potentially on all that money that just got outlined. If you extend, a lot of dealers are saying, we're just buying all these material up front. Well, that's great, but it's coming out of your bank account.
It's funny you say that, because something you said earlier this year, maybe late last year, was, while it wouldn't be good for us as a business, if we could get everybody who is buying from us, or you buying material from somebody else, to stop buying, stop placing POs for anything for 60 days, likely the problem would be solved.
Yeah.
So the manufacturers continue to work, and they're putting parts together. Their manufacturers are putting the chips together, so forth and so on. If you could get everybody just to pause everything for 60 days, it's impossible. It's an impossible task.
Right. But I like the thought.
Right.
Keep it going.
I mean, if you could get, it would be everybody. It wouldn't just be our customers to stop sending us POs, but you would have to stop sending POs to the steel company and to the chip manufacturer and so forth and so on. And they would have to stop sending POs to wherever they're getting their material from.
That's why I don't say that on a podcast. It's like Jerry Maguire all over again. He sends out a mission statement. It's like, less clients, less work,
Right.
I don't want to get in that situation.
Yeah, I mean, if you could theoretically do that, if you could just turn the internet off for 60 days, so nobody could email a PO. I please don't do that.
Yeah. Please don't.
There's other entertainment value there that I would prefer to have. I have 2 little children.
I've got my own.
I thought it was a brilliant statement, by the way. I bring that up to say that theoretically, I think it would work. It's not feasible. If anything's impossible, that's probably it.
I think it would be scary for sure. I've got my own ideas around will our industry, or a lot of industries, get back to what it was in 2019, where you call me and say, hey, we really need to have, let's just keep it simple, this display mounted in this conference room, and we need a Chief LTM1U mount, and we need the Samsung display. Can you guys come out tomorrow and get that done? Sometimes I feel like that we're never really going to be back to that, and that's okay, because a lot of people that are in charge of integrating that need to build a process to be able to do it the right way.
Right.
And too fast is not good. Too long is not good. I think there's going to be a happy medium. So my question really to you is, in your professional opinion, do you think that it's even possible to say a year that we may have some sense of normalcy or average lead time across all manufacturers that we deal with in Pro AV?
Yeah, I think I think generally we are seeing that now in some categories, but there's still outliers that are just weird little outliers. And there's still, the one, it's a little on the older side now, but a couple of months ago, PoE started to become like, oh my Lord, because Cisco, to your very valid point, would you guys quit sending in POs? Cisco, please stop. But the rapid growth of things, a big company like Cisco says, hey, we've got to have X, and they just start drawing. And so when you have a shortage of certain things, you reach out a little further than you're comfortable with to grab some other people that, quote, make that type of a product to bring it in and keep your production going, which has good signs and bad signs, if we're honest, right? Because, do you really know those people kind of thing? But that's kind of been going on in the chip industry, just trying to find these chipsets. And so right now, I think in the sense of like a chief product, like the example you gave, we're pretty close to getting caught up on that. Lots of back orders and stuff on various SKUs that are just big project type things. But I think we're going to see on that tech side, the chip based elements, whether it be the Dante chip, whether it be PoE, whether it be, these elements, I think all of us in the AV are going to have some aspect of that that's impacting. What I do see leaving so far, cross my fingers, knock on wood, whatever. I remember the one I just went, you got to be kidding me. I mean, you remember prior to COVID, people would say, hey, I remember one I was told was, a truck of Panasonic televisions was robbed. And I said, that is the biggest BS line I've ever heard. And that's why we're not going to meet your deadline. It's because the truck was stolen. Turned out it was actually a true statement, which I found fascinating. That was a brilliant, that was a good robbery, right?
I would have called BS on that for sure. I'd been like, somebody's making an excuse so that they don't sound like they missed the mark.
Yeah, but it turned out it was a true story. I don't know that they ever found the truck or any of that stuff. So that guy got a steal, But to my point, sorry, that was a little side thing. We were on a call and the guys go, hey, listen, we're going to have a 90-day delay or 60-day or whatever it was. The stuff was just all over the place. Vadio delay. And the guy goes, and it's not because we don't have them made. And they showed a picture. And we had tons of cameras. I mean, we're talking, that's a lot of cameras, all on like a baker's rack type thing. They've been assembled, they've been set. And the reason they're on the baker's rack is we couldn't get foam. The expandable foam stuff.
Oh.
You can't ship a camera if you can't pack it. The stupid thing's going to be destroyed by the time it gets there, right?
Nothing to do with the camera itself.
Pick them up?
Yeah, well, seriously, there were some people like, man, I'll fly up there, get it, pack it in my suitcase or whatever. But, those kind of things I think are gone. We're starting to see some normalcy in the shipping industry, although I still think there's gorillas somewhere moving some of our stuff because it seems to be coming pretty damaged still from a lot of the lot of the delivery services, but a lot of the other stuff is normalized. I do think, I'm sorry, a little rambly, but back to your point, I think there's some nuances that have been uncovered. Hey, we might need to have more stock. So I think there's going to be a little bit more of a need for distribution style warehouses, whether it's a true distributor or whether it's a Legrand warehouse or whether it's a partner warehouse. I think a lot of people had pulled back from that. And so we had like big regional warehouses. Well, big regional warehouses are great until you have a trucking issue. And then suddenly, to take a rack from New Jersey and get it down into South Texas becomes quite a feat, right? Because you're crossing the largest part of our country. So I think there's going to be some nuances that we're going to see a lot of manufacturers do. And hopefully we'll be working as teams to make that better for everyone. But I think those are the kind of things we're going to see going forward. And then I've noticed, even with Legrand, it's a streamlining of some of the product offerings. So we've had a lot of things with our C2G brand, cables to go. It's been around for a long, long time. Legrand took it in about 5 or 6 years ago, maybe a little longer. I can't remember the date. But we've been kind of going through and, I hate to report, but 232 cables and, the serial cables and VGA cables, we're starting to end of life those.
Yeah.
And non HD base T extension, we're kind of, hey guys, really HD base T is stuck. It's the standard now. And so you see a lot of that stuff going on, and I think you're going to see that out of like the Panasonics and the LGs and stuff is saying, hey guys, I know this has been a SKU for us for a long time, but we're going to move this stuff out.
We've been seeing that in some other brands as well, where you're like, oh, you're going to EOL that. That's fine. It's a perfect product. Why would you do that? And then you look at our own record and you're like, well, we sold 5 of them last year.
Right, exactly.
But we absolutely had to have them for those 5 projects. But from a business, and I'll pick on Extron a little bit because they're friends.
And they're not here.
They're
So that's how that's going to go after I leave.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Their SKU list is massive under a single brand.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't, not hundreds of thousands, but definitely multiples of tens of thousands.
Yeah.
And
excellent products.
And I sit on a council with them and we talk products. I'm like, I don't know how you manage the database of the SKUs. Like you could marry a bunch of these boxes together and just eliminate a third of the SKUs, and it's got to be easier.
Much easier, right?
Well, that too, and
I see a lot of that. Sorry, I see a lot of that coming with like materials and packaging and storing.
Sure.
Because I have to assume if you have a SKU, you are carrying an X number of those on the shelf for warranty purposes. But if you can combine that 3 boxes into one in some fashion, I mean, this is magic, right? We're talking about. Then you're only carrying the X number of those 3 boxes.
Right.
And so I see a lot of manufacturers starting. It looks like they're starting to sort of dust the shelves, so to speak, of items.
Let's do some spring cleaning and get through those parts.
Yeah.
I think that's amazing. It not only
that
helps
doesn't
our
hurt.
current
To be
situation-
clear, that doesn't hurt my feelings at all.
No, it also helps customers embrace. I mean, in human nature, we sometimes hold on to things too long. Some of us are more of pack rats than others, right? Yeah. And if you continue to make displays with VGA connections on it, then you continue to need to make devices that can transport that.
Get rid of it.
And so I think that's one of the ways that we're going to come out of this stronger, not just in professional audiovisual, but really a lot of industries. You're going to come out of it stronger. And I think the next decade is going to be massive for the tech world because they've had a lot more time to sit there and think about the future. What if this happens again? What do we do with and you never thought about those things before. Yeah. So now you're building processes, you're shrinking things into what's the most important for your business and your consumers. And I think that's going to be paramount. I'm interested to see how politics comes into play. I think you probably heard about these bills, legislation that may pass that may help on some of the technology situations, chips, things like that.
Yeah, bringing it back to the States.
Yeah, I think that'll be interesting.
Let that get away from us, right?
Yeah, I don't want to get too segued into that, but I really feel
that's
like
a whole podcast.
There really should be 1/3 to 2/3 of each of the component in a device made on U.S. soil or even Mexico or Canada.
This hemisphere.
Yeah, this hemisphere, right? And I get. I mean, it's obvious why we don't manufacture everything in the States, and that's fine. But as a manufacturer, I feel like you would want that kind of spread around a little bit. Yeah. And not just the U.S. I mean, if you're selling your products in other countries, you would want some manufacturing in those countries too. Yeah. That way, if there is an issue in the U.S., Yellowstone goes off and the U.S. is wiped off the map, they can make it somewhere else because those people are still going to need jobs, right? I guess.
And they'll need some product we make. Right. Whereas right now we need product
Yellowstone
they make.
in the podcast.
Yeah. Love it.
I mean, it probably won't happen in our lifetime.
Listen, Kip, we really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
I love listening to you talk about some of the things Legrand is doing great. I think that's really, really valuable. Keep that superhero. We need to get you like a cape.
We may have.
My wife would probably think that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
My boys would definitely think that was cool. But
may have to get
just
Tom
hang
to
it
put
on
us
like
a
the
logo
back
together.
of the door, and then when your boys come home, they're going to be like, "Dad, what is that?" Oh,
I got a new job.
We're supposed
Don't
to
worry
see
about
that.
My wife is shaking her head like this right now.
I'm Kip Kendrick.
No. Yes.
I'm probably going to have Tom try to throw together a logo, and it's like going to.
Don't be surprised if you get a Photoshop of you sitting there in that chair wearing a cape.
Could happen.
Hey,
all in good fun.
thanks everybody for listening and watching. We're going to post some links to Legrand AV, several of their brands, so you can get to know them a little bit more, just in case you don't.
Please.
And if you're interested about hearing other subjects on the podcast, please let us know at info@taurustechinc.com. We appreciate your time, and we hope you have a great day.